¿Cómo estás, brother?
What's up? What's up?
What's up?
Week number 5.
Week number 5. We're at it again. We made it.
Halfway to 10
we
already.
yeah, we made it more than a month. Jake, did you ever
Yeah.
think we'd be here?
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it happened.
And this week we got probably the most intense subject category that we've had out of all.
Yep.
So this might be this subject might actually last the next 5 weeks. We might make this one all the way through 10. So who knows?
Yeah. Yep.
But
Today
this week we're
oh,
talking on the subject of religion.
yep. Exciting.
So I guess to get that started off, I kind of had like a preface
Okay.
to help hopefully have a foundation of maybe where we get started and then where it leads from there. Like religion is a very broad topic, and
Yeah.
so to kind of keep it broad, but then to be able to define it, I think in later episodes or as we go forward, I think it's important to see where we're starting from and to see how we can articulate um, the subject and where we're going to be kind of headed with it and our thoughts on it. So with that, I did essentially just a quick search of what the definition of religion was. And the one I think we're going to be talking about is a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance.
Okay.
And I think one of the reasons I said that is because if you ask someone, what religion are you? It's all the other ones had to do with a belief in just a higher power. And I guess each one of those is associated with maybe a belief in a higher power and just a small or slightly different variation of another. But as I think of religion, I think I hear the term a lot of people saying that they're not religious. Is that something you hear a lot?
Yeah, now more than ever it seems like.
Okay. And that's where I think for me, I don't really believe that a lot of people aren't religious. And I say that because whether it's music, sports, video games, or anything else that help people create a moral code between right and wrong, there's things that people spend a lot of time doing, and anytime they're ingrained in those actions or behaviors, I think a lot of time they start drawing their moral compass from those types of things. And so, for example, if someone doesn't grow up in maybe what we would call a religious home to where they're going to church and the Bible is their foundation. And I've seen people who are very into music and going to concerts. And what happens is the words, I think, especially you would probably be much more uh, aware of this than me with how a music, because you listen to music a lot more in the words that are being spoken, correct?
Yeah, yeah, I listen to music quite a bit.
Right. And so the words that people are saying, if you're listening to this specific singer who is a role model, you put a higher weight on the words that they're speaking and how you apply that to your own life. Because we have so many role models, whether it's from music or sports. I think also, someone who grows up playing Grand Theft Auto and
Right.
has really no other moral compass, it's just like, okay, what do they learn? I mean, how do we learn how to create morals? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from your parents, and if it doesn't come from your parents, then you kind of just seek from within and just kind of what's influencing you day to day, and that plays a huge role in kind of how you grow up and how you turn out to be as a person. You just look at what's around you. I mean, if your parents aren't really present in your life, then what other option do you have? You can't just sit there and not learn anything. You have to teach yourself and look at what's around you, learn at what other people are doing, what people aren't doing, look at the reactions that are being caused from what they're doing, and kind of form your own moral compass from that.
Right. And like essentially coming from within, I think it's a really good point, but it's essentially how what we surround ourselves with in the world and in society that will impact this. I think oftentimes we don't realize that the things that we consume, whether it's what we see, what we hear, what we taste, those types of things, we realize how much those things impact who we become and who we are and the value system that we have. And, I was thinking, if you listen to today's music, you're going to think drugs and promiscuity are fine. Whereas if we take some of the standards of the laws from the government, there are issues with those. And I was taking this even deeper and further, and I'm not sure that this idea really works out, but I was thinking about someone who comes from maybe a third world country, and you know how you have a lot of professional baseball players that have came from maybe the DR or somewhere like
Yeah.
that, and baseball was life, right?
Yeah.
And so they didn't really have any other maybe religious system, or they didn't grow up with a family or values or anything like that. And so if they're playing baseball, it would be possible to think that something as outlandish as stealing isn't such a bad thing unless you get caught. What are your thoughts on that? Like, the aspect of stealing in baseball, you try to take advantage of it. It helps to score. It helps you get to a position. But it's like, if someone is ingrained in some type of sport or something so much, it's like these words that are relatable in everyday life, like how do those not impact their decision making?
Huh. Yeah, I guess I don't know if I necessarily agree with that or not. It feels like a lot of the people, especially from third world countries, it seems like they're almost more tight knit and religious and family oriented because that's kind of all that they have. And yeah, they baseball is life in the sense, but I feel like, I guess I don't know because I didn't grow up like that. I don't have that perspective. But I would think that they would be able to play the game of baseball, but see it as separately from life or as a higher power or as a religion that they necessarily believe in. I, in my opinion, I think that they would be able to determine the differences between stealing in baseball and stealing in real life and be able to make differentiations between the two. But I guess that's just me. I don't
Okay.
know.
And I guess I was thinking more so maybe in its simplest form to try to prove the point that I'm going to be going to. And I was thinking maybe if it's someone who knows absolutely nothing about love or family or any type of family unit or anything like that, and all they have is baseball to create their value system, like coming from that. And so this is why I personally think it's really important to have a value system that's been around well before our existence. And it's because in order to have an opportunity for a peaceful life and not absolute chaos, there needs to be definitions of what is right and what is wrong, and for that to never change.
Right.
And so that's where I think, kind of heading into religion, when you think of that term and you thought about what we were going to be talking about this podcast, what did that mean to you?
I guess the first thing I really thought about when we brought up the subject of religion is it can be so many things to so many different people. I guess in my mind, the first place that it went was when Jordan Peterson talks about religion. He basically, his perspective is believing in religion, even if, how do I put this? He thinks that believing in a religion, full-heartedly believing, not just saying that you believe in it, but actually believing in it, regardless of whether it's true or not, if you genuinely believe in it and you put your faith in it and you live your life by that, it will improve your life, regardless of whether it's true or not. So that means that, sure, there's so many different religions that contradict each other, but say one person focus on Buddhism, one person focus on Christianity. If they both believe in their own religion, then they dedicate their life towards that, it's going to improve their life because, I don't know, they're just setting themselves up in a way that says, this is the code, I will stick by this, I'll put my faith into this, and it's just something to live your life by.
Agreed. I would say the biggest issue that I have with religion is that it's man-made. And
Right.
so each religion will have, and we're talking about the structured religions, not going back to the music or anything like that I said of what could be people's religion that creates their value system,
Right.
is you have the Bible or any other text
Like
that
Quran.
supports that belief system, correct. And so those belief systems can influence how people act. However, this man-made aspect of religion has taken each one of those texts and they've started trying to um, create definitions for what's
Right,
being said,
right.
interpreting it in many different ways to then go and tell the people, well, this is actually what this means. Like I would, if you look at Christianity, there are more denominations of Christianity than there are verses in the Bible.
Okay. Is that true?
And, and I've heard that, I guess. I may
Huh.
want to search that up.
Yeah. Somebody
But
fact
yeah,
check him.
what's that?
I said somebody fact check him.
Yeah, maybe you should fact check me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm never gonna bring up another fact now. Now that we know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a little scared now. um, but so let's just say there's a lot of different
Right, right, right.
sections of Christianity, right? And so this is the biggest obstacle I was faced with is that in my early 20s and all through my 30s is that I went through a really difficult time of trying to understand how you can have two religions that are so closely related in being Judaism and Christianity, but have such opposing beliefs
Mm-hmm.
that contradict each other, and essentially each one of those religious systems believes that they're right, and they believe that the other is essentially silly and damned to hell,
Yeah.
in the Christian sense, or in terms of Judaism, they're saying that they are having a false god, so believing in a false god
Right.
being the idea of Jesus. And so that in itself came to, it's like they both have the same text. Obviously Jewish people are using the Old Testament, Christians are using the New Testament, um, and they're not able to combine them together. In fact, it's a separating factor that is causing each one of these to go out. It's like Christians believe if you don't, believe in Jesus, that you're not going to heaven, where Jews believe that if you believe in another God other than the God that, then essentially you're creating a false God. And
Right.
so it's just like, just thinking about that, like it's like how does one so fully believe in either one of those two religions to the point to where they can sit there and point the finger at that other group?
Yeah. They put their belief into one thing, but look at something that's so similar except for a couple things and they're like, "Oh, get a load of this guy over here." And they it's contradictory to what they believe because I mean, you're putting all of your faith into this, and somebody else is putting all of their faith into this. Maybe that's because of life experience. Maybe because of what their parents taught them, or they go to this church instead of that church. But then you're just casting judgment on this person for X, Y, or Z. But I mean, you believe in the same thing, just a little bit different, and you're like, oh, well, that person's 100% wrong. They're going to hell, and I don't know. That's just a part of religion that I'm not really a whole big fan of.
Yeah. um, and I think the issue is from a logical standpoint, it's just like, you know you try to break everything down, and then you try to look at how things were written, what books were, like you have a book like Revelation, it's like, what in the world, like why is this so mystical and spiritual, and like how do you, and then you keep going down each one of these bunny hills, like, well, which is the truth, which is the truth, which is the truth?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you just take the Bible for what it is and you read it and you try to understand it, it's like, so if you have all these different options to choose from, how do you choose what the right one is?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a way to rule some of them out, but I mean, you can't. No single person has all that time to go through every single religious text and cherry pick the parts out that, well, these all say this, but this one says this. And like, I think something important in religions, whether it's like Christianity or it's Taoism or Hinduism or Buddhism or Japanese culture or whatever, they all have these stories and they all like the flood story. Every religion has a flood story. every religion has a creation story. Every religion has all these different stories that are in the Bible. If you look at all the other religions, they have something similar to that. And I think it's easy to pick those parts out and be like, okay, well, if all of these different religions all across the world, because you have to think about it. Like, if you're in Japan, the people from Japan are going to have their own individual religion because there was no internet back then when religion was invented. So they're going to have their religion, and somebody in North America is going to have their own religion. And they may be different in the sense because people are creating them from their individual like location on the globe. But if there's worldwide events that happen like the flood, I mean, all religions are going to have that. So I mean, you can kind of determine that is something that almost definitely happened. You know what I mean?
Yes. So I guess going back to that, what are your thoughts on a creation story?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay. Because the main reason I ask that is because if you have one ultimate being, right, who created two people, and then from those two people, the rest of humanity has came into existence,
Right.
then it seems like there's only possibly one truth.
Yes.
And that's, I guess, my biggest struggle is that I agree with everything you said at the very beginning about how influential religion is to people and to their beliefs and to being able for them to have a happy, healthy, and I think structured life. It's very, very important. You know, if you think of any type of sports game or anything like that, you start taking away some of the rules. It's like it's utter chaos, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's not even a game anymore. It's just, and I feel unfortunately with society and with the way we're going, it seems like we want to continue to have more freedom is what everybody is going for, which means less structure and less truth. And then it's just like you have more problems about, well, what is right and what is wrong? Like,
Yeah.
that's why for me, one of my standards was is you have to have something from before I was born, before a lot of other people were born, that we all agree is right.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
we can't keep switching what is right. Like
Yeah.
tomorrow, murder can't be acceptable. Like we and then we can't go further and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that for if you are looking at religion and you're going through all of these different ones, I mean, I think it's obvious that you have to pick a religion that was invented maybe not you can't trace it back to one single person that created the religion because most often those just lead into a cult. I think you just have to pick a religion that's what's the oldest religion? Start from there. Is
Yeah.
this something that I can get behind? Like, can I trace this back to one individual person that created this religion? If so, then that's probably not a good look. And why did that person create that religion? Is it for power? He just wanted to rule over people pretty much? Or,
But even so, is that the way that that specific religion was created could have been in a very pure form. However, that it's that form of what it is today. Because I think anybody who goes in and wants to be a part of religion, a lot of what they're wanting to go into isn't so much the structure and the beliefs system of having a closeness to a creator. It's also to be able to have a closeness with like-minded individuals where we all agree on stuff. And I
right.
think that's something that's very powerful inside of the Jewish community is that they have this structure that Friday night at sundown, that is Sabbath, and they don't do any type of work until Saturday at sundown. And so it's essentially family time. There's no TV. It's people sitting around having conversations like what we're having right now. And it's a structure. And so everybody inside of that community, that area that they live, is all doing the same thing. They also have laws for stealing, for coveting, for adultery, for all these different things. And everybody agrees on those rules. So they have a standard for how they uphold all of those issues. It's not like, oh well, that where one person can do one thing and another person can do another. And so inside of religion, the biggest issue that I've had through the research and the churches and the aspects of religion that I've been a part of is that it's great at the very beginning and you get be around a lot of close-knit individuals, but it's where you start trying to legalize things and you start trying to, deep dive deeper into the Bible or whatever the text is, and you try to be right more, and you're trying to earn your maybe closeness to God or whatever, and then you start creating all these rules and regulations, or the people at the top, they start coming up with, well, God told me this and God told me
Yeah.
that, and manipulating other people who are maybe younger children is one
Mhm.
thing that it's worked great for, or people who are just maybe, again, then this is one of the reasons I want to go into personality at some point, is that there's different types of personality traits where people are more people pleasers, or they're just more empathetic in the family system that they've wrote. So some people are more susceptible to being controlled by other people. And this is the issue I have with text, is that right now, I think we're going through a time where we understand that some of the leadership are lying, and
Mhm.
they're not doing things that they say that they're doing. And so that's why I have a concern, where it seems if we go back in time, that there has been a tradition or a standard of people in those high power positions doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you try to sit there and you take these truths, these texts, and you try to say, God, what is right and what is wrong, and what am I to do with all this?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to think about in religion. I mean, there's so much, because especially if you are religious, it kind of gives you purpose. It gives you a reason to live. So you want to live every single day with purpose in religion. You want to you just want to live by religion. And I think that, like you were saying, people like to control people, and one of the easiest way, not easiest way, but I don't know. I've been into cults a lot lately. Not, I guess not lately. In the past couple years, I think cults are very
You
interesting.
mean researching them, or you've been
Yeah,
part of one?
no. I haven't been in any cults.
Oh, okay, that's
But
good.
listening to podcasts and just researching them. But I think they're just interesting because, like you said, prey on young people. They prey on just people that are vulnerable in general. Maybe people that aren't in the greatest of state of mind. Maybe people that are lonely. They don't have any friends. That's how they get you, right? They try to befriend you. They're like, oh yeah, we're such great friends, and then they slowly introduce you into their church, and they slowly introduce you into their cult, and then by that point you don't realize that you're in it, and you're like, oh wow, this is the greatest thing in my life. And then you don't realize it, and then you're there in a cult in Jonestown, and you're drinking Kool-Aid, and but yeah, like it gets to the point where the person tries to just be your friend, and that's all that person needs right then. And then they slowly start to manipulate. And I feel like, I don't know, I just feel there's a lot of dirty, I don't know, just maybe not all forms of religion are necessarily pure, in the sense that I'm trying to get this person in my religion to give them an eternal life, to make sure that they go to heaven, and make sure that they live the best life possible, and that they can spread the truth, and that they can get as many people that they talk to eternal life as possible. But then you get the other side of the spectrum, where it's literally people just trying to take advantage, and this cult leader has you under one house with 30 other people, and they're all giving their salaries to this one person, and they're not getting any of it, and then it's just a slippery slope.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think when what you have to do is you have to sit back, and no matter where it is you are in life, whether it's religion, whether it's at work, whether it's in a relationship, whatever it is, you have to try to look at the other person, your partner, your community, and say, if I could see deep within this person's heart, or this ideology's heart, what are they really trying to do here? If I start adding up, why are they taking all of my money? What would be the purpose of that?
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're trying to manipulate things this way, and try to really figure out what the heart is, because while religion could be pure, that's the issue that I've seen, and is just it being manipulated back and forth. And oftentimes I would say that I probably was part of a cult. I mean, dude, it was difficult, like the first couple of years after I had left the places that I had been, to be like, that was a cult. But it's like, man, now that I look back at it and I see all the definitions of what a cult was, it's like, wow, I still don't like to say that, because I don't want to I
Yeah.
don't want to say that I was part of a cult. You know what I mean? Like, it
Right.
just really really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't want
Yeah.
to say that,
Oh,
but it's
wow.
like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
wow, it probably was. And you start looking at like the people, like when you start looking at cults, you see people who were maybe very, very awkward out in public. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
have many friends. Maybe they were ridiculed, made fun of growing up. And so they're looking for something to be a part of. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's these people who are very, um, I guess there's another term for being like fired up, or they get very excited about things, and they don't really matter how wild or how they presume, because now it's that they're doing all these things for this higher being or for this religious
Right.
cause, and so that's what gives them this ultimate purpose, which still makes them look as outlandish as they were previously in their lonely life, and whatever it was that they were doing. Now they're look more as heretics.
Yeah. 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 I think, I don't know. I didn't mean to take us down this road of cults, but cults are so fascinating to me that I don't know. I just started going down this road. But religion is not, in my eyes, it's not a bad thing. It's something that gives you a moral compass. It gives you a sense of community. It gives you, I don't know, it gives you purpose. It gives you drive, I think. And one of, I guess, something that sticks out to me was recently I was at one of the job sites, and there's this window cleaner that was at the job site with me. And he was just asking me, he came up to me one day and he was just like, just curious, if you're comfortable with answering this, go ahead. If you're not comfortable, that's completely fine. But he's like, what is your view on religion? What's your, like, do you go to church? Do you think about religion or anything? And I basically told him honestly, I was like, no, I haven't been to church since, I don't even know the last time, but I went to a private school. I'm not necessarily not religious, but I I guess I don't really base my life on religion by, like, I don't know what most people would consider as religion. And he basically just asked if he could pray for me, or he gave me this like speech, and he was saying a bunch of things about like the one true religion, and if it's, I don't know, he was basically going over a lot of the things that I just said about religions that you can trace back to one single person, and you can trace the start of a religion and kind of just seeing that leads to nowhere good. And then basically he was just saying, really all we can do is believe and put all of our faith into this. And if it ends up all being BS anyways, then what did we lose by putting our faith into a religion? And then basically he asked me if he could pray for me, if he could pray for my wife, if we would come to church. And my wife and I did actually end up going to that church. I don't know if it was that weekend or the next weekend, but I don't know. It was kind of, it was, they call it Orthodox, if you know what that is. It's kind of like a Catholic, I guess, almost, but it's different from Catholicism. I don't really know. But that was like, oh, I don't know, last year, November-ish maybe. And then I saw him again like a couple months ago, and he was like, "Hey," and said my name, and how's Evelyn? How's your wife doing? And I was like, "Wow, that's a really good memory." And he's like, "Well, yeah, I've been praying for you guys every single day." And I was like, that just kind of surprised me, because I was like, "Whoa, you." I don't know. When a lot of people say that, it just kind of seems like it falls to the wayside a lot. But this guy actually wrote us down and would sit down and pray for us every single night. And I don't know, it just kind of meant something that he would do that. And it just made you feel good, you know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah, whether he prays every single night for 5 seconds or whatever, like how many of our friends and our families and our close loved ones give us 5 seconds of their days as a thought that goes across their minds
Yeah.
for that many years, dude, or
Yeah.
like our friends or anything like that. It's like you can obviously tell that this specific individual has a heart and he
Mm-hmm.
actually cares. So no matter what the religious ideologies that he might be a part of or in or anything like that have influenced him, you can like it's amazing to see that. It's that's really heartfelt.
Yeah. and I think he was like a, I don't know if they call it like a deacon, or he was like a deacon of a church, and he, every time I see him on the job site now, we kind of try to talk about religion, and he uh showed me this podcast, and I started listening to the podcast, but it's, the vocabulary on it is, it's very religious, like intellectual religious stuff, and I don't really understand a whole lot of it, so it didn't really get my attention all that much, so I just kind of stopped listening to it. But I don't know. It just really surprised me because a lot of people, they say they're super religious and they go to church every Sunday, but then it just kind of stops there. Like they don't really fully live their lives by it, you know? But this guy, it meant like you could tell this guy was his religion. He lived every single day for his religion. It surprised me. I don't know.
Yeah, he walked the walk and he talked the talk.
Yeah, exactly.
His actions spoke louder than his words.
Yeah.
And when you think about maybe not religion, when you try to determine your value system, where would you say your value system comes from? How have you created it?
I don't know. I feel like I'm very empathetic, and I will never put anybody else's feelings above mine, but I will do pretty much anything to not step on other people if I can. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I will always try to determine what the right thing is, and I will do my very best to do that. Obviously, it doesn't always happen, but I think that I like to put myself in the shoes of the other person a lot of the time, and I feel like that's just kind of where my core values come from.
And so even so when you try to determine the difference between right and wrong, you're essentially talking about how you say I always tries to choose right and wrong, but what do you use as a standard to determine that?
Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, growing up, we were taught right and wrong by our parents, by my older siblings. You don't have any older siblings, but I was taught right and wrong by you. I was taught right and wrong by mom and dad, grandpa, uncle. I was taught by church, school. It's just, I kind of looked at how actions affected other people and just kind of based it off of that. Obviously, with everything that I learned in hand too, but
In hand too?
what do you mean? Wait, what?
What do you mean by in hand too?
Like everything that was taught to me, I use that as well as just reading the situation, I guess. Situational awareness on top of what knowledge I already have based off of what was taught to me.
Okay. And then I guess when you think about someone who maybe isn't religious or has had any type of religious experience, if you were to suggest something for people to go to, like, what would you suggest they try to do to find something?
Honestly, I don't know. I guess I really wouldn't be a great person to ask for that.
Okay.
What would you recommend?
So it's really difficult that if you don't have some type of foundation as a child, where you don't have any type of religious experience. And I think that a lot of it has to do with, just like in sports, it's about, for you try things and you start researching things and you keep researching things until you start seeing maybe that there's some untruth. There's this is like, some things it's just like, man, this is really starting to like get really goofy now and not
Mm-hmm.
making sense. And I have way more questions, and this is seems very, very speculative. And so it's like, maybe I should try to either go over this. And I've always tried to look for something where my questions continue to get answered, because I'm very curious.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be like, well, I don't really understand what this is saying here. And then basing how people respond, which is unfortunate, because it's like the Bible or whatever the book, the text it is, it's like, who knows what was meant, and how it was written. Now, today, all we have are these people that we can ask. And, that's one thing I was going to say a while back when it comes to Christianity and the difference between Judaism and Christianity. If someone questions their faith, that means that their faith just isn't strong enough
Mm-hmm.
and that they're possibly, let's say, not saved. Whereas in Judaism, if you're questioning your faith, that means that you're continuing to learn and you're progressing in life. So in one religion, that term is used to mean that questioning is good, that you're continuing to progress. It's almost as if it's never good to just be fully satisfied and just say, oh, I lackadaisically believe,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right,
To
right.
have that faith, that you're always asking deeper questions, you're always trying to understand. Whereas in another system, it's like, oh, well, you have all these questions, that just means you have a lack of faith. And so, again, these are all questions that I don't know the answer to, and that's one of the biggest struggles about religion and why I wanted to talk about this deeper, because it's more about me presenting more questions, I think, to our listeners and to myself, um, of the things that I still don't understand, and I don't know if I ever will understand. But it's really good to have questions to ponder when it comes to the meaning of life and why we're here, and how to have peace and to be able to enjoy life.
Right. Yeah, at the end of the
I
day, if you're not living a happy life and that's full of what you like doing, and if you're not making the people's lives around you better, then kind of what's the point in my eyes, I guess.
Right, and I think for me, one of I think me and you talked about purpose and our goals last week about me wanting to have a family,
Mm-hmm.
and I continue to go back to one of the very first commandments that you'll find in the Bible, and it was to be fruitful and multiply. And I don't know if that's so much of a law as it is an opportunity to have peace, to have structure, to be able to express ourselves fully to our children, and that's something that I'm just seeing in today's day and age where people are really, they're more set on me and what I can do and what I can enjoy. But it's like when you really go back and you look to those things about what you're trying to accomplish on your own and not having kids or whatever it is, it's like, what fulfillment are these things really bringing you? What
Mm-hmm.
are they really, really bringing you? And obviously, I don't have kids, so it's not like I can say that I'm an expert on this, but it's like, I think that there's a lot of purpose and enjoyment that comes from being able to give your thoughts and your minds and just just provide for someone younger than you and help to raise them and to teach them all these things and to watch them go through life with all these questions and experiences. I mean, life is an enjoyable thing, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just the sense of raising this child to watch them go through life and maybe overcome the things that you struggled with growing up, or just to watch their achievements in general, I think that's probably one of the best feelings ever. I mean, I don't know for sure, but everybody always talks about it. It's like I would much rather watch my kids go get all these achievements than me get all these achievements. It just makes me feel way better about it, you know?
Yeah, and I think so. Before the podcast started, we were having a little bit of a conversation where this week I've been kind of pondering life, and it's like, what brings me purpose? And each week I'm trying to like figure out, like, man, like where do I want to go? Who do I want to hang out with? And it's like in a perfect world, I would just like to be home with my kids and just being able to create laughter with them.
Mm-hmm.
And we were also talking about the games that we had created, right? So when we were kids, we created this game called Quarterback Club where one of us would sit on the couch and then we'd essentially have four. What are those round chairs even called? Like papasan chairs, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. They got like the legs in the front and back, and it's kind of like an inverted beanbag chair almost.
Like a disc, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so we'd have three of them, and it was one person would sit on the couch and they'd have to throw the football while the other person was on their knees, like running around back and forth, trying to like knock it out so
Yeah,
that
trying to block it.
you couldn't score. But it's like this creativity. And again, it goes back to a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about memories. Like my most enjoyable experiences in life are going back on old memories.
Yeah.
It's like it seems like it's all I have.
Hmm.
I mean, have you thought about that much?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of memories are. I don't know. It's just a good way to, if you're ever feeling like crap. I mean, it's just a good time to go back and look at old memories and just ponder about. There's a saying that's like, you don't realize you're in the good times until you're not in the good times anymore. And
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, but there's also, what are you doing to make sure that the good times are now and you get to look back at it later and have those fond memories of right now? You know what I mean?
Right. But like in the end, isn't life just the accumulation of all of these events and memories?
Yeah, I guess
Isn't
so.
that all it is?
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's what I think. Sometimes I think we get stuck in how much money can we make. Don't get me wrong, it's important. You have to be able to provide, but I know for me, I'd really have like a rude awakening about like trying to spend more time with my family or going on vacations and stuff like that, because it's like all of these little opportunities, these are really the only things that are going to stand out in life. It's not going to be me, working, not taking a vacation this year and just so that I could have that extra, I don't know how much money, or impress this company so much
Uh-huh.
more, so that hopefully next year I'll have that.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of hoping and just not really living, I guess. I don't know. Everybody's so focused on their goals, and sometimes you just got to sit back and just enjoy life with the people that are around you, I guess.
Yeah, and I try not to make it so that everybody is doing this. I always just try to point the finger back to me. It's like, how can I do better? Like, what can I learn from all of this? You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, what can Chad do tomorrow they didn't do yesterday, and he was working on today to be a better Chad in the future.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess, kind of getting back to the religion, we've talked about some of the struggles, and this is kind of where I've currently been, right? Is that having a connection with that creator is extremely difficult for me. And I don't know if how a lot of people are able to identify with this or be able to have such a strong faith. Like for me, if if I keep reaching out to you via text or via phone call or asking you a question, be like, "Hey Jake, like what do you want to do tomorrow?" Or, "Hey Jake, I'm struggling with this issue. What do you think I should do?"
Right.
And you don't get an audible response back, it's
Yeah,
just
it's hard to keep
it's
going back to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so especially when you see so many times, let's just take the Bible for example, because I would say that's my closest foundation to the religion that I currently have. You read it, and I'm reading it, and I'm reading it, and I'm seeing that there is a connection where uh, the creator speaks to the person. Creator speaks to the person. They have this conversation back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it continues to go on. And then we get all the way up to the New Testament, and there's Jesus who has that conversation, and then he's talking to the people back and forth, back and forth. And then there's this thing called the Holy Spirit that now speaks for us back and forth. And it's like, well, what in the world is that? Because
Right.
uh, that can be misconstrued and like manipulated so much in terms of, oh well, yeah, Holy Spirit said this, you know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
and I would say that's where my biggest struggle is right now. I think that the religious system is good for creating my foundation and how I determine right and wrong, but having a true connection with the creator is where I find the biggest struggle.
Yeah, I think, yeah, especially in today's day and age, there's just so much distraction and so much, I don't know. It seems like if you were to pray every night and you feel like you're never getting a response. And I've I don't know who said it, but I've heard that like what you ask for, if you pray for something and you ask for something, it's never going to be in the way that you ask it for. It's going to be in an indirect situation somehow. Like say you ask for patience or something, then a situation will be presented to you that will require patience, and it'll test your patience, and it'll help you build on patience. You're not just going to get patience overnight or something like that. You know what I mean? But
Of course. Yeah.
it's just so difficult that life is stressful as it is, and you're worried about this and you're worried about that. But I feel like sometimes religion is good in the sense that you can just put all of your stress onto this is my religion. At the end of the day, this will take care of me, and it's just something to put your faith into, and it's calming in a sense at some point because you know that everything's going to be okay regardless of if it'll be okay or not, or if religion is true or not. It makes you believe that it's true, and making yourself believe something is it goes a long way because like we were saying one of the last weeks, the worst thing you can do to somebody is tell them they have anxiety, because if you tell them they have anxiety, then they're going to start telling themselves they have anxiety. And even if they didn't have anxiety before, it's going to develop anxiety because they're thinking about it constantly. And it's powerful to convince yourself of something, regardless of it being true or it not. Like Jordan Peterson was saying, it's to convince yourself that it's true, so you live your life by that, and eventually you'll start seeing benefits from that, regardless if it's true or not, just because you're convincing yourself of it.
But we as human beings, don't you think that no matter how much we think that we've convinced ourselves of something, that there's always that small percentage of a possibility where we're questioning it?
Yeah, I think that's probably true to a sense.
Okay. Because, as I was thinking about the connection with God, and I, I think with where we've developed as a society with technology and all the things that we've done, is that it's easier for us to be totally disconnected to God, where we can pray for 5 minutes, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like then we go to Instagram, to TV, to reading a book, to our thoughts, to all the things going on in this world, to where it's like we've just drew ourselves so far away from that 5 minute conversation that we just had over there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
To
what
where it
kind of
doesn't even mean
blockers
anything.
do we have set up to where we're not even being able to receive possibly any of that? Where
Yeah, that's
if you
true.
go back to Bible times where there was a tent, there was no electricity,
Yeah.
they were out on a farm, there was no radio where they could listen to a podcast. There was dude, we live in such an age of information. There is so much information where your
Mm-hmm.
mind could be occupied 100% of the time. And so it's about like, are we not able to talk and have these conversations because we aren't able to listen and be present in these conversations? Like, I know often I've been in situations where I've been talking. I think sometimes even in the podcast, like you'll be talking and I'll be trying to think about what I'm saying, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even 100% present with what you're saying because I'm so busy with my own thoughts and what I think I'm going to be saying next. To where it's like, how often are we like that with the creator? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think that I don't know. I heard it from somewhere, probably like a podcast or something, and they were saying like even if Jesus did come back today, like we would probably call him crazy and throw him in a psych ward or something like that. You know what I mean? Like people are just so I don't know. They're just I don't really know where I was going with that, but yeah, I don't know. But I think that being connected with nature is a huge thing too. Just kind of getting away from technology and just getting in tune with nature in itself. Like I think that even that could be a religion in a sense, that the universe is the creator and not necessarily that there's one individual creator or anything like that, but just the universe itself is the origin of the universe and something that's always been here and something that always will be here. And I think there's so many different just avenues to go down with religion. Like even in the sense that some of the crazier or not so crazy, depending on what you believe, that maybe aliens exist and maybe we're just like a farm of souls for aliens or something. You know what I mean? Like religion can be so many different aspects of everything, and you know what I mean?
Well, it's a huge accumulation sometimes of ideas, right?
Right.
And so essentially, it's all ideas. Some of them have been written down to where we have to try to take that trust that those weren't just ideas and they were actual conversations and things that were said between the creator and these individuals that were in charge of keeping history, recording history, I guess.
Right. And I don't know what, maybe you're more familiar with what this was, but I think a long time ago, basically initially church was because people were illiterate, right? And like they couldn't read or write, so basically the church would read out Bible verses and it would interpret it for people, and they would learn the word of God through that. And it was, I think at some point it was illegal for people to translate from original text to English, the Bible. And do you know anything about that?
No, I wouldn't be able to support those ideas, especially if you're going to be fact checking me at the end of this
Okay.
podcast. I don't want to be called a liar.
Okay. Well, I'm not fact checking you. I was just throwing it out there for if anybody's skeptical that maybe they should check these facts for themselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that again, this is all conjecture. This is things that I've heard,
Right.
but in terms of it being provable or anything like that, I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
No, yeah, I don't know.
Huh, okay. So I guess for religion to you is it used to play a really large role in your life, obviously. Does it still really play a large role in your life, or what would you say?
Well, it doesn't play a large role in my life in being part of a community because I've went to church after church after church, and I've created my own essentially ideologies and values based on what I've read in the Bible. And so a lot of these things are very difficult because I've went to Jewish places where people aren't accepting me because I'm not Jewish. So it's that's what's interesting. If you go to a Jewish synagogue and you're not Jewish, they look at you weird and be like, "What is this person doing here?"
Right.
Where if someone who is an atheist or Jewish comes to a Christian church, they're accepted, and it's like, okay, all you have to do is at the end of the day, just say this prayer and accept Jesus into your life, and you're saved, and now we're all friends.
Yeah.
And so while I can be accepted at a Christian church or something like that, it's just when I've been to those types of church and visited, there's just not much depth. It's all about this belief. Oh, you just have to do this. You just have to do this. It's like, well, yeah, but what's the application? What's the logic? Like, how do we have deeper conversations about? Oh, well, and it just seems very, very surface level to where Jewish places they go much deeper. But again, they're very, very off-putting. They're standish, and then they became very, very legalistic in terms of, oh, well, on the Sabbath you can't use an elevator, but you can have a Gentile hold the door open for an elevator because it's not okay for us to start a fire or to use electricity, but it's okay for them to do it for us.
Huh.
Or like the Feast of Passover, they'll take unleavened bread. You're not supposed to have unleavened bread in your house. And so what they'll do is they'll sell the leaven to Gentiles, and then after Passover is over, they'll buy it back. Where it relates to the story of the Passover of the Israelites going out of the coming out of Egypt. So they came in haste because God created the plagues, and that last plague was the hardened Pharaoh's heart, and they didn't have enough time for the bread to rise. So that's where it comes from. They do it in remembrance of him. But it's just like this whole thing, like that you're doing. It's not like you're really getting it out of your house and burning it. You're just selling it off and pondering it off onto someone else. And it's like.
Right.
And that's my biggest issue with religion is that all these man-made policies and doctrines and rules or things is just like, is this what it really meant? Is this what it really meant? No, it's not. And so that's why I have a hard time resonating. So for me, I feel like I'm alone out on this island because I just try to be a good person and be the best that I can be. But I also try to be accepting of all these different religions, Christianity and Judaism together. And it's like, I feel like I'm ridiculed because it's like, well, they're not okay. They're not okay over here in this circle.
Right.
It's like, well, you guys don't think they're okay,
Yeah.
but and they don't think you're okay. So how do I determine who's okay? Why don't we just leave that up to God and he'll figure it out? But I don't really. That's the biggest struggle. It's like from a logical thinking perspective, it's like, how do you determine what is truth?
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the most difficult things. It's like going into religion, and I think one of the most difficult parts for me is kind of finding how it's applicable to today's life, because it's all always so old-timey, it seems to me, and there's a lot of good values and there's a lot of good lessons to be learned, but to me it's very difficult to apply any of those teachings to present day life, and it seems like it never, even if it translates a little bit to current day, it seems like it never always translate all the way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Is there any specific aspects that you think or that you struggle with them translating all the way?
Not really, but I guess because I work in construction, so I work around a lot of Amish people, and it's just like kind of like you were saying with the elevator, but you can have somebody else hold open an elevator for you. That's kind of like the Amish people. Like they can't drive a car, they can't use electricity, but they could get in somebody else's car and have them drive, basically. So it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. It seems like that's kind of cheating or defeating the whole purpose of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say very hypocritical, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's just like, if you're not going to do something, don't do it, but don't do it at all. Don't just
Right.
do it
Yeah, yeah.
in some scenarios, but not others.
Right.
Like,
That's another thing. Like people will kind of nitpick things in their religion that they want to follow, and then the things that are maybe more difficult, they're like, oh, well, that's kind of like a lesser rule that I don't really have to follow. You know what I mean? Like either you follow the whole religion or you kind of don't really follow the religion at all. Like you can't just nitpick what you believe and what you don't believe, because then that's again just kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. You know?
are there any examples of that stand out to you?
Well, I guess I don't know. Growing up, you wouldn't eat pork, and I guess just that's the first one that comes to my mind. It's you talk about these Bible verses that say, "Look, this is why you don't eat pork, because pigs are basically they eat trash, they clean the filth, and therefore you should not eat pork because it's filthy." Or same reason with like shellfish, they're like the bottom feeders. Like you shouldn't eat them. They were put here to dispose of filth, and then it's always like, well, yeah, but I don't really believe that, because I really like bacon and bacon's really good, so I don't really want to follow that because I just don't want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so the thing is that that's they use the reason that Jesus did away with all those the laws, and so that's how they're able to essentially say, "Oh, it's okay to eat those things now." And the issue I take up with that is that if that's what happened, then why is it so important? Why do you press upon people to go to church on Sunday so much? Where if
Right.
people don't go to church, then they're not considered a Christian. It's like, well, where's that law in the Bible? Like, and it's like again, it's like there are always things that they have excuses for not doing, but then they also have these certain specific standards that are set in stone that if you don't do this, it's not okay. And it's like, well, how is this one not okay, but this one over here is okay? It's very asinine and hypocritical.
Yeah. That's one of the main things that, I guess not one of the main things, but that's a major thing. It's just I don't know. The communities that I see in religion are just very hypocritical, and they always, I don't know, it's being very generalizing a lot, but some of the, I don't know, some of the people that say that they're the best people just turn out to be some of the worst people sometimes, you know?
Yeah, I think sometimes they have the best intentions. And, I think sometimes people will use religion to be able to get one over on people as
Hmm.
a way of controlling people and getting what they want. I think anytime that, someone could have a pure heart at the very beginning, but once they start getting power and control, it's very difficult to have control of yourself and to not take advantage of those things. Jake, like the older I get, the more I see that, like, sometimes, the more money I get, it seems, even it can be hard.
Right.
The more you get in power of something and you want to take advantage of people and get more power or more money or whatever, I just see that happen quite often.
Hmm. Yeah.
But we kind of going back on maybe the religion and what religions are this and that. The one thing that I always thought was cool is I always, for me, when I take religion and I've created my religion, I always take it back to the Torah. So the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible.
Right.
And if anything contradicts that text or doesn't seem to make sense, then I question the text that was written after, not the original text. And so that's how I guess when you ask if I'm religion, that's the religious standard that I use to always go back to determine like what is truth and what is not truth.
Okay.
And something that's so beautiful about the Hebrew language, and if it was the idea is that it was the language that was used to speak earth into existence, would be absolutely amazing. And so there's different types of Hebrew prayers and those types of things. Just the Hebrew language is very beautiful. And one of the reasons it's so beautiful is because it's not an identifier language. And what I mean by that is that the English language is a language where somebody would point at something and, well, that's a cat. Okay,
Right.
cat. That's a dog. That's okay, dog. Well, they have no correlation with each other. And the Hebrew language is something where it has essentially root forms. So there's parts of a word that create bigger words and larger words. But the words for like water, the word for water is mayim, and the words for sky is hashamayim. And so those two words are correlated with each other. And a lot of it has to do with the color, the blues, but it also says, like in the very beginning of the Bible, that the earth was created from the skies.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of different words inside the Hebrew language that are all formed, like the word for cuddle, the word for diaper, and like hug. There's a couple other but they all have to do with grabbing around, right? Like hug,
Right.
cuddling, going around the body or whatever. They're all related, and that's how the Hebrew language works. Is that they have those root foundations that create the larger words.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's one thing that I just always thought was really, really fascinating with Hebrew. I'm not sure if there's really any other languages that are similar to having that, but yeah.
Where, I guess, where does Hebrew originate from? Is it Israel, where Hebrew comes from, or?
I mean, the belief is that it was the original language.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, that's the belief based on all of the research that I've done. It's not that it came from a specific area or anything like that, but there have been languages that have stemmed from Hebrew. So Aramaic, Arabic, very close to the language. So something, Hebrew is actually read from right to left
Yeah, I remember
versus
that.
left to right. So,
Okay. Huh. How long did it take
but
you to learn Hebrew?
I mean, I took a whole year where I was kind of studying it and learning it. It probably took me, 6 to 7 months to be able to read it, but I was just kind of able to sound it out. It's not like I was able to understand what I was reading.
Right.
It would be like, bat, bat. And it's like,
Right.
okay, I just pronounced it, but I have
But what
no
does it
clue what
mean?
this means.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
is
yeah.
what is this? What is this? So
Okay.
I'm not able to fully comprehend it. I can speak some of it.
So so Hebrew is still letters that look like they're like the English alphabet for the most part. It's not like some Chinese letters or anything like that.
No, it's Chinese.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I would assume somebody who was looking at it, you wouldn't be able to pronounce any of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're not English letters. No, they're 20. What is it? 22 characters.
Huh.
Yeah. If you saw it, you would be like, "What is this?"
Huh.
Yeah, just like
Interesting.
looking at Chinese or Russian or anything else.
Huh. Weird. Okay.
Correct, but they have like vowel pointers over different letters and stuff like that. But That's kind of going off onto a tangent where I'm sure
yeah.
a lot of our listeners don't know anything about or care to
Right.
know anything about.
Right. Huh.
So,
Okay.
no, anything more to, I guess, to say about religion?
Um, I mean, there's a lot more, but I guess nothing that I can really think of right now. I mean, we could dive into the specifics of religion, but I think generally the overarching view of religion and the importance in people's lives and the importance in society, and I feel like I feel like now more than ever it's just kind of lacking in society, you know what I mean? Like it's just so easy to not, like you were saying earlier, it's not really not religious because it's just replaced by something else in your life currently. But I feel like traditional religion is less popular more so now than ever.
Yes, but the key is I'm not sure that it's less popular just because people chose that, or if it's because it started getting tainted by people trying to use control tactics. And like you see all these church pastors with these jets
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
flashy, and they're on TV and they're up and yelling and screaming and making this huge performance, and everything is glorious and it looks like a music video or something like that. That was the other
Yeah.
thing that turned me off to these churches. Like I went to one on Mother's Day and they spent like what was it, 10 minutes of the service doing this Bohemian Rhapsody
What?
Mother's Day
What?
skit that took up this, and was like, this has absolutely nothing to do with church. It's, I get it's Mother's Day, but it's like, what? And it was a performance. It was like the next weekend I went, it was a performance. It's like they're putting on a performance because they want to be able to entertain people. It was almost like people were coming to church to be
To be
entertained
entertained? Yeah.
versus to be able to maybe deal with the hurts and the pains, or to try to have a closer relationship with God that next week. And I think that's where the struggle is. But again, I'm wondering if this kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week, is that we've been so made fun of or ridiculed as human beings to where our insecurities start just kind of overcoming us, and to where we don't want to be vulnerable with the real issues that are happening in our lives.
And you just kind of want to distract and kind of like be entertained, like you said, huh?
Well, it's not even being distract. It's just like, oh, well, I don't see anybody else being vulnerable. I don't see anybody else seeing like they're having a hard time in life or going through these struggles. So it's like, that's okay. Well, why should I go with these struggles? Like, let's just go get some temporary pleasure, temporary fulfillment, and go, go eat some cookies, or go have
Yeah.
some fast food, or go, turn on the TV, or go play video games, instead of
Right.
like dealing with whatever it was maybe at work that hurt us. Our boss treated us like crap, instead of trying to go and seeing, man, how can I try to confront this issue a little bit better? How can I try to feel like I'm not worthless tomorrow, without just going to work and just being a lesser human being than I was the day before?
Right.
And I would say that's the biggest struggle, is that oftentimes we don't deal with those things. We don't confront these issues. We just kind of keep letting them slide by. And then we start having resentment towards that boss, and oh, well, he's doing this now. And every time he does something, we're picking him apart because of that previous experience that we never confronted and told him how it made us feel. So now everything he does, some type of small thing, we always think that he has it out for us, when possibly it's just trying to do the best that he knows how.
Yeah, and then a lot of the times they don't even really realize that they're doing it. But then since you didn't say anything, they don't realize that they're doing it. But since you didn't say anything, then it seems like they're doing it on purpose to try to get at you or something, and it's very easy to try to pick apart somebody else rather than looking inwards and being like, why am I not saying something? But yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Right. And it's that inward self-evaluation that I think that we oftentimes don't want to do with God, where we can do that all alone, no matter where we are. But we struggle, like I said before, because we're not getting a response, and we don't
Right.
know how to get that response, and we don't know where that comes from. And so it's just like, well, when if me and you are going to talk, and I'm just sitting here asking you questions on this podcast, so you don't respond, like, this
Yeah.
podcast isn't going to be enjoyable. And I'm
Yeah.
just going to get like, okay, Jake, like, are you hearing me? Are you there? Where are
Yeah.
you? And sometimes that's how I feel, you know?
Right.
I will say this is that in the past year, I didn't really care for the previous place I was working. And I had spent some time in prayer. And, you know, let's see, when was it? It's probably been 3 months ago. The company that I currently work at, the CEO and the CFO, they actually came on a tour of that other property. And so the property manager wasn't there that day. And I took him on a tour because he usually does these tours.
Right.
And I talked to them, and then they came back again the next day. Again, they didn't let me know who they were, so I didn't know
Right.
this.
Right.
They
Right.
came back again, uh, and was they were acted like they were interested in an apartment, and I was like, this is super weird because these people are dressed super nice.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know why they would be living in an apartment complex, even though these were nice places, but
Right.
I was like, okay. And then the last time it was 2 months ago. And finally, I was up in the apartment and I was kind of showing them around. And finally, they just said, hey, Chad, like, we didn't really come here to look at the property. We came here because we wanted to offer you a job. And it was just like,
Huh.
that was just, I guess, as I look back on it, that was something really powerful because it's not like I was going out and applying for jobs or using LinkedIn or doing anything like that. But that was something that just kind of came to me. And I don't think that really happens very often.
Right.
So, whether it's prayer, but I also think that one of the things, whether it's religion or whatever it is that just having gratitude on a daily basis and really keeping track of our emotions, being in a positive mindset, looking about what I have to do today, what I get to do today versus what happened to me yesterday or what happened to me today and all those types of things. It's really important for our minds and our bodies to be able to progress and have peace and health in the future.
Right. And then I think to add on to that, what you were talking about, the CEO and the CFO, and you were praying about not necessarily liking your job. And I think that we were saying that it's difficult a lot of the time seeing no response, but I feel like sometimes it can be the the response can be just maybe because we're not setting ourselves up to be able to see the response. Like if you were that day that they came to visit, if you were too busy thinking about your current job and how much you don't like your job and letting that affect you, and rather than being the person that would try to do your job to the best of your ability and try to be the most charismatic and personable and trying to show these people the apartment, regardless of your presumptions of these guys are dressed really nice, I'm sure they're not really here to rent an apartment or whatever. I think sometimes the answer to the prayers can be, I think it's we don't understand the answers to our prayers because we don't understand they're the answers. We just kind of assume they're something separate rather than maybe verbally we don't hear back, correct. But I think through actions, a lot of the time, maybe the responses come through that way. And I think it's just setting yourself up to be able to receive those responses and doing the best of our capabilities to just set ourselves up to be in that position, I guess.
Yeah, and I think maybe to further explain that, I think it's all about really staying true to yourself.
Right.
That if you're going to pray for something or if you want to be something, always make sure you're that. Like, stick to your value system, stick to your beliefs. And like for me, a lot of this had to do with setting boundaries. And I think that's something as we get into religion, like that. Sometimes I don't think people know how to do. Like if we take this Jesus mentality where we be a servant and it's always just serve, 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 serve all these other people around us, that these people become people pleasers and sometimes they get manipulated.
Right.
So again, going back to yeah, really just staying true to yourself, true to your who you are, true to your value system.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Do you have anything
So.
else that you would want to add to this?
No, I mean, I think that would kind of go off into another subject category, of religion. It's a very expansive topic, so we could
Right.
keep going and going and going. But
Right.
no,
So,
I
did you
think
want to did you want to share a story or something of Dad for this week?
Yeah, so I was thinking of a story for this week, and um, a lot of the listeners probably don't know our dad that well, but one thing my dad did struggle with was a very weak stomach. And so part of that was in some of the things he saw. So we had a cat. The cat's name was Smokey. It was a beautiful, loving cat who was just, man, I miss that cat so much. He always wanted to be pet, like just never caused any issues. So Smokey would always be out meowing, wanting his food, and my dad would always go get the food. That was one thing my dad could do, and he enjoyed doing was feeding the pets. And this one time, he went to get the cat food, and I hear it open up, and I hear Dad just going. And I was like, Dad, what's? He's like, can you take care of this? And so I go over there, and somehow Smokey's cat food had gotten clipped
maggots.
open. And he opened it, and there was just maggots like running all over it and inside. And Dad was just about he just could not control himself. So I had to go out and I had to take care of it. But it was just Dad, whenever he was cleaning up maybe a dog mess or any type of like throw, it would just not go well with him. He would always be gagging while he was doing it. And it was just, hilarious to just hear him just like so.
Right.
That's that was my story for this week.
That's a good one. I like that.
But yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that I just wanted to add, it's I was asking a couple of friends that text me about the episodes and whatnot. And I was just asking if there was anything that they wanted to critique or make important that the podcast or their favorite parts or whatever. And I think one of them was saying that it's hard for people to die, but nobody is really truly dead until their legacy and their stories and their memories stop being in circulation. And I feel like that's very powerful because even though he may be gone, which is really hard from day to day, it's easy to go back and look at those memories and put yourself to relive those memories and just even telling the story, just the laughter that it brings, you can put yourself in that situation and kind of relive it almost. So just those words of nobody's truly dead until their name and their stories and their memories just are forgotten. I feel like that was very powerful, and it's one of the kind of main reasons we're doing this podcast. And yeah.
Well, I think it just gives us an opportunity to create more memories for ourselves, to share our dad's legacy. And I mean, we're just so much of who he was and all of what he kind of taught us that it's like, it only feels natural to just do a podcast and to stay true to ourselves and to hold on to our values and to be able to share those with others. I think we were very, very fortunate, in the man that we had as a father who raised us. And so there's just a lot that, whether it's kind of discussing who he was or what he helped us with, but it's more so what he created in us that we just like talking and being able to share with our community and the world.
Right. Yeah.
So on that note, we appreciate you guys listening, staying with us for these 5 episodes. We've probably got 5,000 more to go, and we'll see you on the backside.
Yes, sir. See you later.